I'll go through the timeline here in a minute, but I just kind of want to ask you open-ended question. If a person is like when NHL season comes around and it's playoffs, you'll see guys who are in the playoffs, they'll come into commentary, okay? If a UFC fight takes place, people want to hear what Rogan has to say because he's in the space. What does Daniel Cormier has to say? Because he was a fighter. What does Conor have to say? Their tweets during a fight is above anybody else's because their analysis is in that space. If a plane crashes from American Airlines, United Airlines, you'll bring somebody who was a pilot for 30 years and they'll give the perspective of what happened here, maybe even somebody that was a pilot that a plane crashed before. So we watch it from the perspective of American citizens concerned about, wait a minute, this guy almost got assassinated, right? How do you, as a former sniper with 33 confirmed kills, having worked as a PMC and a ranger yourself, how did you, when you saw that, what was the first thing you said?
The first thing I thought was it had to be fake. It almost seemed like it was AI. My mind could not comprehend exactly how that was allowed to happen. And when the news came out about who conducted the attack, that 20-year-old kid, Crooks, it was, I believe that's his name, Crooks. It was hard to fathom. I almost did not believe it. It seemed like a made-up story. I couldn't believe it at first. The gunshots also threw me off, but then I remembered, the sound that we were hearing was that supersonic crack, and then you heard the report of the rifle going off in the background, the AR-15. But the whole situation was weird, the entire thing.
At the whole situation on day one.
Day one.
Now, at the beginning, when we saw it, everybody was showing the clips and all these videos were being posted. So we're like, okay, how many shots is it? Ta, 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 ta. And then 10 seconds later, ta.
Yep.
So I thought it was 8, then it was 9, then it was 10, right? And then FBI Ray is being interviewed, and he's asked, I don't know, Rob, if you got this clip or not, where he says, a total of 10 shots by only one shooter, okay, is what he's claiming. And he says, of course, there's a second shooter, but the second shooter is the one that killed the actual shooter. This is when Ray says there's nothing more than that, and he's confirming that in a hearing when he's asked that. Rob, you'll find it here in a minute. Is this it when he says how many shooters was there?
Yes, it's where he's asked, did Crooks fire 8 shots? To which he replies, 8 cartridges were found on the roof.
He says 8 cartridges were found on the roof. Go ahead and play this clip, Rob.
Did Crooks fire 8 shots?
We have recovered 8 cartridges on the roof.
Okay.
Did Crooks fire?
We fired. So at this point, it's been a couple weeks. What do you know now yourself, having followed this closely?
I know that the Secret Service messed up big time. And not just, I think it was at the highest level. I don't think that the communication from the local guys on the ground, I think there was a delay in communication. If not a delay, there was no communication at all, which is like a big screw up on their behalf. You're supposed to have that direct line of communication, especially for, you have the former president of the United States, and it looks like possibly could be the president of the United States once again. Just the lack of security and I guess the neglect of not having security measures in place, the communications in place. From what I know now, it just seems like, I don't want to be like a conspiracy theorist, but it almost feels like it was a setup at this point. There was so much, failures from the top down.
So when did you start believing maybe it is a setup? Was it from day one? Was it day 2, day 3, week 1, week 2? When did you say, you know what, this is a little too weird now?
It was day 1 when we found out that the 20-year-old kid climbed up on the rooftop. When I heard that he was on the rooftop, that was like a big sign for me that, why was a counter sniper team not having eyes on a vantage point like that? The high ground, that's like military 101. A civilian knows that. You want to have, not access, but you want to have eyes on the high ground. You want to dominate the high ground. I'd rather be on the high ground during an ambush as opposed to being, on the receiving end beneath. That really threw me off from a sniper's perspective why someone was allowed to be on a rooftop within 400 feet or so from the presidential nominee. That does not make any sense to me.
So did you, Rob, which video is this, Rob, that you have?
This is Christopher Wray being asked if there were more than one shooter during the day.
Go ahead and play this clip.
A fairly active recreational shooter, so he did plenty of shooting.
A lot of guys in Western North Dakota, right? I mean, all of those different things. And somehow we came within under of an inch of a presidential candidate being shot and killed within 100 days out from an election. And when you look at it, so I just want to be really clear, because there is a lot of this. There is no evidence of another shooter, right?
I mean, another shooter.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the counter sniper who took out the shooter.
Well,
right. But you're talking about like another.
Anybody else. And you're looking at his online and seeing all that, but there's no evidence he had any other accomplices on scene that day, correct?
Correct. Not that we've seen yet, certainly.
And you said, and Oversight's had a hearing, DHS had a hearing, we're having a hearing now. The Inspector General's going to investigate. We're probably announcing a bipartisan outside panel. But there's another investigation too, right? Because somebody has to clear the shooter. Like, even though it is a Secret Service officer deploying his, I mean, when an FBI agent kills somebody in the line of duty, what's the process?
So we have what we call an agent-involved shooting, is I think what you're getting at. And we have a whole process.
Usually get put on leave, paid leave, get a lawyer, depending on how it is, right?
Some of those things depend, but we have our inspection division does a shoot review of each time when there's one of these situations, and they sometimes have to coordinate with local prosecutors.
You can pause it right there. From the sounds and the clips, Rob, do you have that clip that came out yesterday that Trump was speaking? The Crooks was walking right behind him. I think we have it on. Did you see that one?
Oh yeah. You can see his head on the just above or below the rooftop.
Right behind Trump.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it is a. That's him right behind him. I mean, look at that. You're looking at the saying, wait a minute.
That's scary.
Right there. Crooks is moving. You see his head again pop up right there.
That's scary.
400 feet. And you mean to tell me Secret Service can't see that?
Right.
You mean to tell me a sniper doesn't see that? You mean to tell me somebody who's professional doesn't see that? So do you think from your angle, with all these professionals you work with in the past, are you under the impression that there was only one shooter aside from Crooks? Meaning it's just Crooks.
I want to believe that, but there's something about that water tower that almost stands out to me a little too much. If anything, as a counter sniper, I would want to have somebody on that water tower. Do I believe that he was the lone shooter? It's almost like asking, do you believe Lee Harvey Oswald was the lone assassin for JFK? I think it's a. I don't want to sound like too much of a conspiracy theorist, but it just. That water tower does stand out to me big time.
When you say water tower, you're talking
There we go. That water tower overlooking the where Trump was speaking at.
Now, let me ask you, how many assignments of protecting high-profile people have you been a part of?
Oh, well over 100. Well over 100.
Can you give some names that you could on who you've worked with, that you've protected?
Some Supreme Court justices, members, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, the head of, I believe it was ExxonMobil at the time.
Rex Tillerson?
I'm not sure of his name.
Okay.
It was I believe it was Exxon. A lot of Supreme Court, some politicians from Congress and Senate that came over. And then you had telecommunications.
Was it this man? Was it
yeah,
him?
there we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah, this guy is like he's one of the most heavyweight guys, he was the former U.S. Secretary of State himself.
Yep.
Okay, who else?
Off the top of I'm not too familiar with names. I just know positions, and a lot of them came from the Congress, Senate.
Okay, so every time you had these 100 missions, how many snipers would be on these missions? Give a high-low. Like you could say, for Supreme Court on this mission, it was only one. But this time with Biden and Hillary Clinton, it was an XYZ place. We had 8. How many is it?
On the low end, depending on who it would be and where we would operate, you'd have as few as 2 snipers. The most I've had are on a mission was around 10 guys.
10 guys?
Yeah,
and
10.
who was the 10?
That was for Joe Biden when he came in.
As a president,
Vice president.
as a VP?
Yep, vice
so
president.
What year was that?
That was around 2000 and I want to say 11, 10 or 11.
So we're talking 14 years ago, 13 years ago. And Obama's obviously not a company. It's just Vice President Joe Biden. Where was this? How big was the crowd? What was the optics? Is it thousands of people? Was it public? Was it in a hotel? What was it like?
Well, he landed in Baghdad. That's where we picked him up at. And we met with the Secret Service detail. It was a small detail. Drove him around to the embassy and to have conduct a few meetings outside the embassy in what we would call the red zone, out of the green zone. And we were, going through the city of Baghdad in Iraq, there's thousands of people. Once we got to the venue is where we would have, we would position set up our counter snipers and on rooftops and in vehicles and things of that nature. But once on venue, a few hundred people max, driving through the city to get to a venue, thousands of people.
And at that time, he's a vice president. He's not a guy that everybody's watching. Like when Kamala was a vice president, there's a difference between Joe Biden as a VP in 2011 versus, Barack Obama in 2011 as a president. You have to protect them immensely. Then there is Trump 2024 with the level of controversy and all that stuff. So you would assume an event like this would maybe even be more than 8 or 10, right,
Exactly.
for president.
Exactly.
So if you guys had 8 or 10 for Joe Biden in Afghanistan, how many did you have for Hillary Clinton, and what year was that?
It was around the same, 8 to 10 snipers, and that was in Baghdad as well. I believe that same year. I remember she came over and she lost a BlackBerry, a secured BlackBerry phone. And we had to.
Was she forced to delete the emails in the BlackBerry?
There was some deletion going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So, and this is also in Afghanistan?
That was Iraq.
That was Iraq. Okay. So for me, when we've done a lot of events in the last 20-something years, I run a sales office. When we would see any office we're doing an event at, okay, greeters, you're going to stand here. 3 people parking. People are going to come from here. Please direct them to park over here. Keep these spots for guests. Associates and licensed agents, you guys park in the back, so all the best parking for guests is going to be in the front. When you're greeting, here's the script. This is what you ask him. You give him the sticker, hello, my name is, and then you direct them. You guys will stand and give a tour. One person here, one person here, one person here. Just kind of move them all along to go into the big meeting. Once they enter the meeting, you're going to be able to greet people and walk them around. Make sure they're being networked. Don't just leave them hanging by themselves. Take them to the next person and hand them off like there's something that's going on with a handoff. While we're going through the meeting, here's what we're going to do. We're going to hand out the cards, and here's how we're going to ask the questions at the beginning, in the middle, at the end. If somebody needs to use the restroom, escort them to the bathroom so they feel like they're being greeted properly. At the end of the meeting, give them the cards, ask them the following question, have them go into meetings if they want to, schedule. There's so many things that you can, and I've done this thousands of times over the last 20-something years that it's just kind of like clockwork, right? Yep. You look at this, you've done 100+ assignments. If they said right now, hey guys, in 2 weeks, we have an event that's going on in Butler, Pennsylvania. The city's population is 13,000 people. But President Trump's going to be speaking. There's going to be an outdoor place that he's speaking. Keep in mind, this is right after the debate taking place. It's 2 weeks after the debate with Biden, which we know what's going on. There's a lot of weird things that are being announced right now. Go back to that picture, Rob. Stay on that picture if you could. Okay, what would you think, me as your supervisor, if I'm the supervisor, looking at this, where would you automatically say, we need somebody over there, we need to sweep this area, we need to go look at this, a week before we got to do this, 3 days before this, on the day of we have to look at this, an hour before we got to check this? How would you process this location?
Immediately, going for the high ground. You have the water tower. We're talking weeks out. Weeks out, I'm scanning the outer perimeter, that tree line, making sure there's no devices in there.
Which tree line? To the right?
To the right.
Okay.
Right behind, well, essentially most of the tree line, especially to the right where it's thicker vegetation.
You're checking for devices in it.
Any devices in it.
What kind of devices are you looking for?
Remote control, explosive devices. They can be remote control detonated. We have the, was it like an EFP? I believe that's what it's called. devastating explosive device or IED essentially.
How do you check for that, by the way, in the trees?
We're scanning.
You have the technology to scan to see if that's out there?
You do have technology. We also have jammers and stuff like that, which is weird why they didn't employ their jammers during this entire venue. When I heard that Crooks launched a drone prior to his attempted assassination attempt, he had a drone that was flying over. That should have been jammed, in my opinion. I would scan the tree line, make sure there's no, positions, pre-designated positions that someone could have set up in there. If I were a sniper, I would plan on waiting for like a week. If that was a really high value target and I wanted to take someone out, I'm going to wait there for at least a week. I would struggle, but 4 or 5 days is no issue.
If you wanted to take them out, if you wanted to take who out?
If I wanted to take out a high value target such as Trump, I would have my position planned weeks in advance, and I'm staying out there at least a week prior to that. I'm just not going to show up on the field and start shooting. It would be a week out. Scan the tree line. Of course, all the buildings, scan the buildings, go through the buildings, make sure there's no, devices in there, anything or anybody where they could set up at. Of course, the rooftops. And there's not really too much that can be going or that you can have like vantage points to take out Trump. It's a pretty good area to conduct if you wanted to have a rally like that. But there's not really too much that you have to scan for. The tree line's not too thick. You just have one little section off to the right. That water tower is a big threat, and of course the rooftops that are within 500 or so feet from where Trump will be speaking from. That would be my biggest concern. But after that, there's really not that much. I don't see anything that will pose any threat that a guy's going to take a shot from, like the movie with Mark Wahlberg. They were planning for like that mile-long shot. I don't know. That's not happening. There's not really any good vantage points for that to happen. Everything's within 500 or so feet, 600 feet.
How great is it that at a time like this, when you have questions about politics, you can ask Candace Owens, Chris Cuomo, Tulsi Gabbard, all on Minnect. And if you got questions about what happened here with the sniper, and I got questions about what happened with the Secret Service assassin. I want to ask somebody that was a sniper before. Now you can. Nick Irving, 33 confirmed kills. As a sniper, Army Ranger, is on Minnect. Ask him whatever question you want. He'll respond back to you. Just click on that QR code, download the app, start asking now.